My sister's holiday surprise turned into a fraud scandal that shattered our family's trust forever. Okay, so this happened last Christmas, and I swear it felt like something straight out of a movie. I 18M was home from college, and my little sister Sophia 16F had been acting weird for weeks leading up to the holiday. At first, I thought it was just typical teenage stuff, secretive phone calls, hiding her screen when anyone walked by, but what went down at dinner still blows my mind. We were all gathered at my grandma's place. She lives in this old house with creaky wooden floors and that warm, cinnamon apple smell that always hits you when you walk in. Mom 41F was running around the kitchen trying not to burn the ham. Dad 44M was drinking wine with Uncle Peter, Mom's brother 38M, and the rest of us were setting the table. Sophia came in looking all smug, wearing this new red sweater that, frankly, didn't look like something she'd normally be able to afford. I noticed she also had a brand new iPhone on the table, casually showing it off like it was no big deal. Wow, Sophia, Grandma said, raising an eyebrow. Did Santa come early this year? Sophia smirked. I've been working on some things. Nobody questioned it too much in the moment, but I clocked it. She didn't have a job. No allowance big enough to buy a $1,200 phone. Something felt off. Dinner went fine at first, classic holiday small talk, laughter, clinking glasses. But then, mid-meal, Uncle Peter brought it up. So, Sophia, he said, pointing at her phone with his fork. Where'd you get the money for that? Sophia froze, then gave his little laugh. Oh, you know, online stuff, side hustles, everyone's doing it. Dad frowned. What kind of side hustle? That's when the whole room went quiet. Sophia tried to brush it off, but Uncle Peter pressed harder. Finally, she blurted out something that made my stomach drop. I've been helping people with their accounts, like online banking stuff, and I get a cut. The table erupted. What? Mom shouted. Are you saying you're stealing? Sophia rolled her eyes. It's not stealing, it's like exploiting loopholes, it's easy money. Grandma gasped. Dad slammed his glass down, and I just sat there with my jaw on the floor. She said it so casually, like she didn't even realize how bad it sounded. Then came the real kicker. Uncle Peter pulled out his phone and started checking something. His face turned red. Wait a damn second, he muttered. My account, someone tried to pull $600 last week, don't tell me. Sophia immediately got defensive. I didn't touch your stuff, she snapped, but the timing was just too perfect. The atmosphere shifted completely. Laughter gone. Festive spirit gone. All that was left was suspicion and anger. And I could tell deep down this wasn't just a side hustle. Sophia was in way over her head. The rest of dinner was basically ruined after that. Everyone was tense, and the food just sat there getting cold. My mom kept grilling Sophia, but she kept dodging the questions with vague answers like, you wouldn't understand, or it's just smart money moves. But then Uncle Peter wouldn't let it go. He was scrolling on his phone, muttering under his breath, and finally said, I'm calling the bank right now. That's when Sophia lost it. Don't, she shouted, loud enough to make Grandma flinch. You don't get it, if you call them, it could mess everything up for me. Mom's face turned pale. Mess what up, Sophia, you're 16. What the hell are you even involved in? Sophia tried to keep her composure, but her hands were shaking. She finally said, okay fine, I've been running accounts for people, like, I help them move money around, and I get paid. It's not illegal. Dad slammed his fist on the table. Not illegal, that's fraud, Sophia. It was like a bomb dropped. Grandma gasped again, she was practically clutching her pearls, and Uncle Peter immediately stood up, waving his phone. I knew it. I knew those weird transactions weren't random. I finally spoke up. Sophia, are you seriously saying you've been moving stolen money? She looked at me like I had just betrayed her. It's not like that, I didn't steal from anyone directly. People give me access, I help them, and I get paid. Everyone wins. Except the people you're scamming, Dad shot back. Then came the real gut punch. Mom asked, whose account have you been using? Sophia went quiet. Dead quiet. She wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. That silence was louder than anything she could have said. Dad leaned forward. Sophia, tell us now. Finally, she whispered. Some of them were family. You could have heard a pin drop. My chest felt tight like I couldn't breathe. Uncle Peter exploded first. You little brat, you went into our accounts. Mom's voice cracked. Sophia, please tell me you didn't use ours. Sophia muttered. Just once. The look on my parents' faces, I'll never forget it. Mom looked like she was about to cry, and Dad's face was this mix of rage and betrayal. I pipe up again, trying to keep it together. Wait, how much are we talking about? Sophia finally admitted it. I only pulled like $300 from Uncle Peter's once, then maybe $200 from Dad's. I swear I was going to put it back. That was it. The room exploded. Uncle Peter was shouting about pressing charges, Dad was yelling about broken trust, and Grandma was begging everyone to calm down. Sophia stood up, tears streaming down her face, screaming, I did IT for US, I did IT so I wouldn't be a burden. It was chaos. And for the first time in my life, I realized just how far gone my little sister was from the girl I thought I knew. By this point, dinner was completely forgotten. Plates of half-eaten food sat abandoned, and the holiday lights in the living room felt like they were mocking us. Sophia was pacing back and forth, tears streaking her face, while Mom and Dad were just staring at her like they didn't even recognize her anymore. Tell us everything, Dad demanded, voice low but deadly. Every account, every transaction now. Sophia took a deep breath, her small frame trembling. Okay, I didn't just do Uncle Peter and Dad. I took money from some of Mom's friends too, and I even borrowed from a classmate's account. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, I swear. Mom literally stumbled back in shock. You what? Uncle Peter had his hands on his head, pacing like he was about to have a heart attack. You've crossed every line imaginable, Sophia, 16 years old, and you're already defrauding people. Sophia's voice cracked. I only did it because I wanted to prove I could do something on my own. I thought if I made money, maybe you'd be proud of me. I hate feeling like I'm just useless. I felt my chest tighten. I knew she was insecure, she's always been the quieter one in the family, but this was a whole other level. Mom's voice softened a little, but the hurt was still raw. Sophie, broke our trust. That's not just being independent, that's betrayal. You don't just prove yourself by hurting the people who love you. Sophie collapsed into a chair, sobbing. I know, I'm sorry. I didn't think it would get this bad. Dad leaned against the wall, running a hand over his face. We're going to have to report this, that's the law. I can't just let this slide. Grandma muttered from her chair. Oh, heavens, my poor children this holiday, ruined by fraud. I sat there feeling a mix of anger, disbelief, and pity. She's my little sister, and I love her, but she had done something that could have serious consequences, not just legal, but emotional. Then Sophia did something that made me pause. She looked at each of us with wide, tear-filled eyes and said, "I'll make it right. I'll fix everything. I'll pay back every penny. Even if it takes years, please don't hate me forever." Her words hit hard. I mean, could she actually undo what she'd done? No. But the sincerity in her voice, it was the first real moment of accountability she'd shown. Mom sat down next to her, hesitating, then wrapped her arms around her daughter. "We don't hate you, Sophia, but you've got a lot to fix, and it's going to take a long time for us to trust you again." Uncle Peter grumbled, but eventually sighed. "You're grounded for life, kid, and I'm monitoring my accounts like a hawk." Sophia nodded miserably, tears still rolling down her cheeks. I just sat there stunned. The holiday dinner was officially over. All that festive cheer? Gone. But for the first time in hours, I saw a glimpse of the little sister I knew, someone who still wanted to make things right, even if she'd gone completely off track. The days after that holiday dinner were tense to say the least. Sophia barely left her room, and when she did, it was to apologise again and again to anyone she'd wronged. Mom spent hours on the phone with banks and Mom's friends, making sure nothing escalated further, while Dad sat with Sophia, trying to figure out a plan to repair the damage. I think the hardest part for all of us was seeing Sophia, normally so confident and sarcastic, completely crushed by guilt. She even started a little spreadsheet, tracking who she owed what and when she could pay it back. She'd come up to me quietly and say things like, "Do you think Uncle Peter will ever forgive me?" And I had to admit I didn't know. I wasn't sure any of us could forgive her quickly. Mom tried to balance discipline with sport. She set strict limits on Sophia's phone and online activity, insisting she have no access to anything financial until she turned 18. "You need to learn responsibility," Mom told her one night. "And part of that is facing the consequences of your actions, not hiding behind a screen." Sophia spent hours writing apology letters to everyone she defrauded. Some she mailed, some she delivered in person. I remember watching her hand shake as she handed Uncle Peter an envelope. His face was a mix of anger and disbelief, but he finally nodded curtly. "Just don't ever pull this again, alright?" It wasn't just about money. The betrayal cut deep. My parents had trusted her implicitly, and that trust had been shattered in a single, shocking night. Slowly, though, she started to rebuild it. She helped around the house without complaint, checked in constantly with Mom and Dad, and stopped hiding behind her phone. I think the biggest change was in her attitude. The arrogance and bravado were replaced by humility. She admitted mistakes without excuses and actually listened when people offered guidance. For the first time, I think she realized that being independent doesn't mean doing things alone or secretly, it means taking responsibility, even when it's uncomfortable. One evening, weeks after the holiday incident, she sat down next to me with a small notebook. "I've paid back most of what I could, and I've saved a little for the rest. I don't want to lose you guys over this," she said. Her eyes were red, but determined. I nodded. "You scared us, Sophia, but I can see you're trying. That's the start." She smiled faintly, exhausted but relieved. The road to forgiveness would be long, and trust wouldn't return overnight, but at least the first cracks were starting to mend. By the time spring rolled around, things in our family had stabilized. Sophia's fraud had made us all painfully aware of how fragile trust is, but it had also forced her to confront herself in a way no lecture ever could. She'd made a mistake, one that could have had serious consequences, but she was slowly learning how to make things right. And for the first time since the disastrous holiday dinner, I felt a glimmer of hope that the worst of it was behind us. Even after Sophia started making amends, the tension lingered. Every family gathering was like walking on eggshells. Grandma still avoided mentioning the incident directly, but I could see the worry in her eyes whenever Sophia came near a plate of food or pulled out her laptop. Mom, meanwhile, was hyper-vigilant, double-checking bills, accounts, and even text messages. Dad tried to act casual, but the occasional side glance at Sophia's phone betrayed his anxiety. Sophia, for her part, had gone through a visible transformation. The girl who used to snap sarcastic remarks and brush off responsibility now approached tasks carefully, double-checking every detail. She asked permission before using anything financial, even for something as small as a $5 app purchase. One evening, she came to me quietly with her notebook. "Look," she whispered, flipping to a page filled with numbers. "I've made a list of everyone I owe, how much, and when I can give it back. I even included interest for the time I kept it. I want to prove I can be responsible." I was stunned. "Wow, Sophia, this is detailed. You're really doing this?" She nodded, biting her lip. "Yeah, I don't want anyone thinking I'm still that person." Uncle Peter eventually softened a little, though he never fully trusted her again. At family dinners, he'd give a tight-lipped smile and mutter something like, "Don't touch my wallet," before turning back to his plate. Mom and Dad made it clear forgiveness would take time, but her efforts were being noticed. At school, Sophia started taking on small jobs babysitting, tutoring younger students to make her own money legitimately. She told me she wanted to prove to herself and to the family that she didn't need shortcuts. I could see her pride and shame battling in her eyes, a constant reminder of the holiday disaster that had changed everything. There were moments that were harder than others. Sometimes she'd receive a call or text from someone she had defrauded, and the guilt would hit her hard. She'd retreat to her room and cry, and I'd knock and sit with her until she calmed down. One night, she admitted to me, "I can't believe I let it get this far. I didn't think about what it meant for the people who trusted me." It was a painful acknowledgement, but it was honest. For the first time, Sophia wasn't just apologizing, she was reflecting and taking responsibility. And slowly, that made a difference. Mom even started letting her handle small amounts of money around the house, grocery runs, paying bills for grandma's small utilities under supervision. Sophia approached each task with care, and each success seemed to rebuild a tiny piece of trust. By summer, it felt like a fragile equilibrium had been restored. Sophia was quieter, more cautious, but also more aware of her actions and consequences. The holiday fraud incident wasn't erased, it would never be, but it had become a turning point, a painful lesson in responsibility, honesty, and family bonds. Even though trust was still fragile, there was a sense that the worst had passed. Sophia had made her mistake, faced the consequences, and now, with effort, she was starting to rebuild the person we all knew she could be. It wasn't until a small summer gathering at Grandma's that things finally felt like they were starting to settle. Mom had insisted on hosting a barbecue, trying to recreate some sense of normalcy. Dad was in charge of the grill, Uncle Peter was begrudgingly helping with setup, and Sophia was running around, nervously making sure everyone had drinks and utensils. I watched her from the porch, still a little wary but proud at the same time. She was laughing, actually joking with cousins instead of staying in her shell. It was the first time in months I'd seen her genuinely relaxed in a family setting. At one point, Uncle Peter approached her with a stern look. "Sophia, can I talk to you for a second?" Her shoulders tense, and she nodded. I followed discreetly as they stepped a few feet away. "I've been watching you these past few months," Uncle Peter started, crossing his arms. "I'll admit, I didn't think you had it in you to take responsibility, but I've seen the effort. You're making it right. That counts for something." Sophia's eyes welled up. "Thank you, I just want everyone to trust me again. I know it's going to take a long time, but I'll do whatever it takes." He sighed and finally smiled, just a little. "Don't screw it up again, that's all I'm saying, but I think we can start over, carefully." That small acknowledgement from him felt huge. Sophia's face lit up with a mixture of relief and gratitude. It was as if the weight she had carried since the holiday dinner was finally easing. Later that night, Mom pulled Sophia and me aside. "I know the past few months have been hard on all of us, especially you two, but I want you to know that trust can be rebuilt. It's going to take time, patience, and honesty, and I believe you're willing to do that." Sophia nodded, tears quietly streaming down her cheeks again. "I promise I won't let you down." Even Dad, who rarely said much about emotions, came over and ruffled her hair. "Just don't make me regret it, but I see you're trying. That's a start." I looked at my sister and realized something important. The fraud incident could have permanently fractured our family, but it hadn't. Yes, the trust had been broken, and yes, the scars would remain, but the process of facing mistakes and accepting responsibility had forced growth not just for Sophia, but for all of us. As the evening wore on, laughter returned. The smell of grilled meat, the hum of conversation, even grandma's small complaints about the messy patio wall of it felt like a fragile kind of peace. Sophia was still the same mischievous girl in many ways, but she had learned how dangerous her choices could be. And I knew that while this chapter of broken trust would always be part of our family story, it was also the chapter that taught us resilience, accountability, and the power of forgiveness. For the first time since that fateful holiday dinner, I felt hopeful that we could move forward. By the time autumn rolled around, it felt like a new chapter had started for our family. Sophia's fraud scandal was no longer the elephant in the room, it was more like a reminder of how far she'd come. She was still cautious, still monitored, but she carried herself with a newfound sense of responsibility. She paid back everyone she could, and for those she couldn't fully repay, she offered to volunteer or help in other ways, babysitting, tutoring, even assisting Uncle Peter with his small business finances under supervision. The sincerity was palpable. One weekend, Sophia sat me down in the living room, holding a small envelope. "I wrote letters to everyone I hurt," she said softly. "I didn't just want to apologize in person, I wanted them to know I really get it now." I took the envelope from her and glanced at the neatly folded letters inside. They were heartfelt, humble, and honest. Not a single excuse. Just accountability. I could feel the weight of her remorse in every word. Mom and Dad had begun to let her handle small amounts of money on her own, buying groceries, paying for her own online subscriptions, even helping with some bills around the house. Each success, however small, was a brick in the slow rebuilding of trust. Grandma, who had initially been the most anxious and vocal about the incident, now smiled when Sophia helped her with little tasks, fetching groceries, balancing checkbooks, or just spending time listening to stories about the good old days. She started to believe, slowly, that Sophia could grow from her mistakes. Even Uncle Peter, though still careful, had started joking with Sophia again. "I don't think I've forgotten your little scheme, kid," he'd say, but the smirk on his face was proof that a bridge had been rebuilt. I realized something as I watched all this unfold. The holiday fraud wasn't just about money. It was about trust, honesty, and the delicate bonds that tie family together. And while Sophia had shattered that trust, she'd also been given a chance to fix it, and she was taking it seriously. One evening, Sophia came to me and said, "I know I can't undo what I did, but I want to be someone you can all be proud of. I want to prove that I can do the right thing, even when it's hard." I smiled faintly, my heart aching a little at the thought of everything we'd been through. "You're getting there, Sophia. It's not easy, but I can see trying, and that matters." The holiday fraud incident would always be part of our story. The broken trust, the tears, the arguments, they weren't things we could erase. But Sophia's effort to make amends, to learn, and to grow had started to heal the family. Slowly, carefully, step by step, we were moving past it. And for the first time since the disastrous dinner, I felt a sense of hope and cautious optimism. Sophia had made a grave mistake, but she had faced it head on. We were scarred, yes, but not broken. And that made all the difference. For all the drama, all the betrayal, and all the chaos, there was now a path forward, one paved with accountability, love, and the chance to rebuild the trust that had once seemed lost forever.